I'm Rob Thomas, and welcome to another episode of Club Resort Talks. Today's episode is brought to you by KE Camps. KE Camps provides the highest quality in children's summer camps for country clubs. The unique setup of KE Camps offers children opportunities to experience a variety of dynamic and innovative programs, all customized to the particular needs of the club. KE Camps is dedicated to creating family-friendly and inclusive atmosphere at each of its partner clubs. They strongly believe this is accomplished by providing a joyful camp experience for each and every camper. Learn more at kecamps.com. Now let me introduce our senior editor, Phil Karen. Phil, what is in the news today?
A lot of stuff in the news, Rob, all this week. Lots of stuff to share. Good to talk with you again. The Raven Golf Club out in Phoenix, Arizona, has transformed its course. They've actually restored the course's 60 sand bunkers. They revitalized tee complexes. The sand bunkers have been kind of reconfigured to be relevant for today's game, and to kind of be in line with the kind of various skill levels of golfers that are out there now on courses. And Arcus Golf's construction division led that project, used the Better Billy bunker liner system and a special blend of sand. So great to see that. I know that's a course that's it's one of Arcus Golf's 13 properties in the greater Phoenix area. So great to see that project happening.
Yeah, you know what struck me most about that, I mean, it sounds fantastic. Sounds like a great project going on there. But looking at that course, I would not guess that is a desert. I mean, that course is in the desert. It looks lush. There's trees. It's not like your typical big waste areas with cacti everywhere. Beautiful, beautiful golf course, but does not look like it belongs in Arizona, which I know I'm pigeonholing Arizona. They got all kinds of topography there, all kinds of golf courses, but not in my mind's eye what I think about when I think of a golf course.
True. If you saw a picture of it, yes, and asked and didn't tell somebody what state it was in, they might not guess Arizona on the first guess, I'm going to say. Yeah.
Yeah, with the mountains, maybe California. I mean, that's close.
Yeah.
But gorgeous golf course. What else is going on?
Also, I was trying to focus on some projects that had happened recently, kind of going inside the clubhouse in North Carolina. Concert Golf Partners just finished a big project at McGregor Downs Country Club in Cary, North Carolina. Is a multi-year, multi-million-dollar capital improvement project. They put in LED lighting inside a lakeside room, and in the upstairs conference room, kind of give it a more updated look. New carpet and paint added throughout the facility. And I guess, too, as I understand it, recently the former fitness center space was transformed in the St. Andrews Room pool bar last August. So now it's as I understand, a popular gathering spot for member events and special events. So great to see. And of course, they have a terrific golf course down there as well. Good to see that sort of being complemented with the indoor facilities they're offering there too.
Yeah, capital improvements aren't sexy. They're not the outwardly visual. Boom, we got a brand new clubhouse. We have state-of-the-art patio. We have all this stuff. But boy, what a difference it makes with the with lighting and a coat of paint and fresh carpet. I mean, I'm sure it just livens up the area, and that new gathering spot sounds divine.
It does. It sounds excellent. It's definitely I would think, definitely draw in some new members there for sure. The other story I wanted to mention too was something kind of fun. We've talked before about holes in ones, um, hole in ones at various clubs. I even talked about my dad getting a hole in one many, many years ago. But this was a neat story out of Florida. A gentleman named Ted Crocker. He's 85 years old at the Heritage Ridge Golf Club in Hobie Sound, Florida. He had a hole in one for the second time at that course. He had a hole in one 23 years ago at that same course. But here's the thing that I thought was amazing about it. He actually had the recent hole in one happen on January 15th. Well, the one from 23 years ago, also January 15th, 2001. So I thought that was remarkable. Not the same hole, but it was on the same course. And it was 23 years to the day after he had made his first hole in one at the same course. Kind of a remarkable achievement for him.
Congratulations, old timer. That sounds
Yes.
fantastic. You and I are still waiting for our first.
Yes.
But neither one of us are in our 80s or in our 60s when he got his first hole-in-one. So, we still have time. Fingers are crossed, man. That sounds like a great story. That was a fun one to report on, I bet.
It was, definitely was. It sounds like he had a friend with him. They were watching it. The funny thing from the friend's quote was something about, he said he's watching and all of a sudden it hits the pin, and he told his friend, he said, "Hey, either win in or win way over the green." So, kind of two opposite scenarios happening there. Obviously, great news to see when they got up there. They saw the ball in the hole, and he had an ace, second ace in at the same course in 23 years. That's something else. And to have it, I don't know, January 15th, maybe he needs to somehow play the lottery and have, 1 and 1 5 in there. And seems like those numbers ought to be in there for him on that, I would think, because January 15th is obviously a day that works for him.
Well, being from Northeast Ohio, we don't get to play a lot of golf on January 15th historically. Obviously, this guy gets to enjoy the fruits of his southern living.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hey, I want to get to our podcast guest, Santiago Gomez of New York, and I asked him specifically. It's Padel Haus. So you and I were at I think I can't remember if it was GCSAA or if it was CMAA last year, but the guy pronounced it Padel, and I think a lot of
Yes.
people are Padel, Padel. Uh, he says he's from Acapulco, which is where the sport originated. So he knows the whole story. He says Paddle House.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm going with paddle. That's what we're doing. The expert says paddle. I'm going to say paddle. Paddle House. So
Okay.
he's opened up 3.5 locations. He calls it half because he's got an outdoor only location right next to one of the current locations that's only open obviously in the warm weather. But they're going to be opening a new one. As a matter of fact, I think it was just announced yesterday. Recently,
Mhm.
Nashville is going to be the new location. So 3.5 in the Brooklyn area, going down to Nashville, and he says maybe within the next year we're going to be talking 5 more places opening up across the country.
Wow.
So we talk a little bit about the origin of the sport, which I didn't know,
Hmm.
and we talk about his clubs and his crystal ball out and what's going to be happening in 5, 10 years. So interesting conversation, and looking forward to sharing it with you, Phil, and the rest of our audience. So hey, let's get to it. Right, take care, stay well, and have a great day. Well, hello, welcome back to Club and Resort Talks. I'm here with Paddle House founder and CEO Santiago Gomez. Santiago, welcome to the show.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Hey, thank you very much for joining us. And before we get started, can you give us a little origins? Tell us a little bit about paddle.
So, paddle is a sport that was invented in Mexico in 1969, in the town of Acapulco. That's where I grew up, and that's where I learned to play the sport. The sport was originally invented by a Mexican gentleman that had a house by a cliff next to an ocean and did not have enough space for a tennis court. So he built a smaller version of a tennis court, and then he put walls on the sides so the balls wouldn't go into the ocean. Then they realized they could use the walls to also play with them and play the ball off the wall and pass it over to the other side.
So, what would you say? I mean, is it comparable? It's got origins in tennis, but would you say it's comparable to racquetball as well? Paddle that we see at a lot of the American clubs right now. What is the similarity in the sport, playability, equipment, everything?
It has a mixture of everything. It has a mixture of tennis, given the racket that we use. It has a very similar size of court to platform tennis. Also, the rackets are made of EVA foam, which is similar to what they use in platform tennis. And it has some mix of squash because you can also use the walls to hit and pass the ball over.
All right, fantastic. Sounds like we always talk on this podcast about a rising tide lifts all ships. Pickleball has been considered the fastest growing sport in the country, but now I understand that paddle is maybe the fastest growing globally. Uh, are you seeing a lot of rising interest in your locations?
So when we opened Paddle House, we opened the first court ever in New York. And obviously that this was almost 2 years ago. So things have changed a lot since then. The demand and the players that we have right now is exponentially, much more players than when we first opened. And and yeah, I mean we're just here and excited to be growing.
How did you said you'd grown up in Mexico and that's where you were introduced to the sport. Were you just a young lad back then, or was your family involved in paddle? How did you get involved particularly?
I played paddle as a teenager in Mexico. I discovered it through my parents. My parents, um, we have a court in our house in Mexico, and I started playing initially just friendly matches. Then I played a few tournaments back in Mexico. That's when I was a teenager. Then I moved to New York to work in finance at some point during my mid 20s. This probably 15 years ago. So when I moved to New York, I stopped playing paddle completely because there was nowhere to play. I played a little bit of tennis, but always had a little thing in me that wanted to always play paddle in the US. Um, After my years in the bank, I went over and opened restaurants here in New York. And in 2020, when COVID came and the restaurants were closed by COVID, that's when the idea came to me of maybe I should think about doing something else instead of restaurants. I talked to my restaurant partners. I sold my shares to them, and I devoted my time and resources to open the first paddle club in New York.
So, I mean, that's a big leap. Entrepreneurship is no joke, but obviously you're already into it with the restaurant side of the business. What was there any pause, or did you think, okay, paddle is going to be just as popular in New York City, given time, as it is in Mexico, or as it is in France or Spain, over in Europe? Was there any pause, or did you just say, "Hey, let's go, gung ho"?
There's a few things. One is during COVID, a lot of the European governments were not allowing people to play team sports, and the only team sport that they were allowing people to do in Sweden, in Spain, Italy was paddle. So that sort of prompted a global boom of the sport. And also during that time in 2020, they had opened a club, the first club in the US in Miami, and I saw that it was successful. So I thought we could replicate that in New York, and that the New York market people were open to new things. And given that New York has a lot of international population, it was quickly adopted and people enjoyed it.
Now, I was first introduced to Paddle House I think it was just last week, when you opened up. You've not opened up but I saw a release that you'd opened up a third location in Brooklyn. Can you describe your Paddle House locations, indoor, outdoor, what kind of courts there are, amenities beyond paddle?
In July 2022, we opened the first location. That's in Williamsburg, in Brooklyn. It has 4 indoor courts. It has a steam room, showers, it's a juice bar, multiple lounges, and social gathering areas. Our second location opened in Domino Park in Brooklyn as well, which is steps away from the first location. It's an outdoor location, and we have 3 courts. Our I call that our half location because it's only open during the summer months. Then location, our second indoor location opened in Dumbo last summer in July 2023. And then we just announced our third location also in Brooklyn, in Greenpoint, which will be our largest location, five indoor courts, um, steam room, showers, juice bar, and multiple lounges as well.
Okay.
I think that with these locations, we basically cover the demand of paddle in all of Brooklyn. So we are now focusing on the out of state expansion, and we have managed to sign a location in the south that we will be announcing later this week. And then hopefully by the end of this year, we are in construction of 6 more locations.
So I'm not going to get any breaking news here on the podcast, huh? I got to wait for the rest of the people.
We're opening in Nashville.
Hey, all right, Nashville. We love Nashville. Growing, growing, growing. I was there not too long ago, and every block has a hotel going up. So, fantastic location. Thank you for sharing.
I was there last night, and what impressed me about Nashville is that a lot of New York brands, hotels, restaurants are sort of moving. I also see a huge residential real estate boom there. So I think it's a great city and has a lot of potential for paddle. And
Yeah, a
we will
lot
be
of
the first to
young,
market.
upwardly mobile people as well.
Correct. And we will be the first to market, which is great.
Well, congratulations. Hey, so I want you to get your crystal ball out. Now, you talked about hopefully within the next year, you're going to be opening up multiple locations. If you could think 5 to 10 years down the road, what's on the table for Paddle House?
In 5 years, I think we will be close to 50 locations. And during that gap of 5 to 10 years, we're going to see a lot of things with the sport. I think the sport will reach 30 million people in America, 30 million players. I think we will have, by then, the sport will convert into an Olympic sport. It's not happening in this Olympics, but most likely for LA or Brisbane as an Olympic sport. We are very close to reaching the number of federations needed to classify as an Olympic sport. And I think at that point, the sport will easily be the second most played racket sport in the world.
Wow. Wow. Fantastic. That is, I mean, ambitious growth, obviously, but it seems like that's like the sky's the limit for paddle.
I think the pace at which I believe it's grown in the past few years, it just shows that it has a lot of potential. I've seen it grow in countries that I never expected: China, South Africa, Japan, Middle East, Sweden, all over Europe, all over South America. It seems like the US and Canada are the last two remaining large countries, and we're just poised still to grow.
Wow. Terrific. How can people find, I'll look at you on this one. How can people find you on the web, on social media? What's your handle? What's your website? That kind of stuff.
Website www.padel.haus. That's PADEL.haus. Instagram at Padel Haus.
All right. Fantastic. Santiago, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you joining us here on Club Resort Talks, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, Ram.